The failures of Africa has been one of the, Africa and its problems has been one of the most talked about things. And in some cases, when people mention Africa, it's almost like synonymous to, you know, negativity. So, and I think it is important to have this discussion and asking if Africa is a failed continent. So what's your take on that? Do you consider Africa a failed continent?
Well, I will not say Africa is a failed continent, but I'll just say Africa needs to step up its game. You know, we have to compete. We live in a world that's competitive. So we have to be responsible. We have to take responsibility for our actions, and we have to compete. That's what it's all about. You can't rely on someone else to help you, you know, and that's what we do. We rely on aid. Why should someone give us aid when we have everything back home? Like, what, you know, even the fact that we come to this country is a testament to the fact that we're not doing the right things, because we've got everything back home, you know. We've got the land there. We've got all these things for humans to thrive. We have it in Africa, so we have to make use of the materials. We have to make use of our resources, and not just material as well. We have to think of the human resource, because I think that's the most important, and that's what we don't take care of in Africa. We don't take care of the human resources. We concentrate more on material stuff. So all the time we think about, oh, we've got gold, we've got diamond, but what about the people? Yeah. How are you harnessing the people, like, you know, giving them proper education, supporting them, and making them be productive within the society so that the society can grow and develop? Instead, we tend to, you know, to just look at selling our gold to foreign countries, and few people put, you know, whatever they get from that aside for themselves and their families. And that doesn't take us anywhere, you know. And then in the end, we start blaming the Western world, you know, like, oh, things, you know, or we start looking up to them for aid, you know, for some foreign aid. What foreign aid do we need? All we need to do is to negotiate with what we have. We've got the resources. If you're going to use up our oil, or you want to use our diamonds, well, this is the deal that we need. This, you know, we have to negotiate in the interest of everyone, you know. But, yeah, so it's about changing the mindset. Yeah. You know, but I don't think Africa is failing. I won't say it's failing, because people are still trying to make sense of the system. It's just, for me, if I would say failing, I would say the educated or the elite in Africa is failing the people of Africa. The people who are entrusted with government, the people who are looked upon as the people who are educated, they are failing Africa.
Yeah, but you see, that's a good point to sort of emphasizing leaders in Africa. But you see, how I see it is like, first, I was asking myself last night, and I said, like, I think we have to sort of reshape the question and rephrase it, like, Africa is not failing, or it's not a failed place, but I think it should be Africans failing Africa. And I think in that way, it shapes the focus to
because the continent of itself is there.
It's just a geographical setting.
It's not like our diamonds are running away from us, or our oil is starting to go in different directions. You know, so Africa itself as a continent is there, and whatever is in there is there. You know, you can, you know, agriculture can thrive. There are so many things that can, you know, be done to improve life for people in Africa.
Definitely.
So the continent itself is okay. It's still fresh. Actually, it's half, you know, it's like half explored. Africa, you know, there is so much potential within Africa. So, but the people, and not all the people as well, you know, for me, the responsibility always have to be with those who we've entrusted, you know, like with governing any particular country there, you know. It's a responsibility to look after your people. And our so-called PhD holders and masters holders or whatever, that these are the people that, because they are, Africa is full of these people. People with PhDs, master's degrees, or you see them dressed up with suits and stuff. But then at the end of the day, all they care about is amassing wealth for what? For themselves. It's all about the self. And then you wonder, well, what sort of education have you got really? Because you have to start thinking about others. It's not just about yourself, you know? And I don't know how that can be solved because it's a bit more of a personal thing, I think, that people will think like that, but it's a problem for Africa.
Okay. What do you think, G?
I think Siddiq has covered everything. I mean, we all as individuals have different roles and responsibilities to play within Africa and to, I guess, have the continent be what we want it to be. At the end of the day, it has to do with the governing. There's lack of regulations, there's lack of law, and so people just do however they please.
Yeah.
And it's not just affecting the countries alone, it's affecting the people as well. Why do you think that majority of us are here? If we have better governing, better people who are willing to do all they can. I mean, there are people who are doing the possible they can to make life better for themselves. Africa, if I would say, is one of the richest continents in the world. And so I guess, if we all come together as people and have positive mindset, I don't think we would be willing to leave our countries to move here for a better life, because I believe that we already have that there.
Yeah. And I think I'm sort of tempted to say Africans have failed Africa, but then I think that in a way overlooks like the hard work of other people that have, Pan-African people that have tried to advocated for Africa's independence mentally and economically in every capacity, and people that have done it, doing it, and will do it. So you have to give them that respect. But Africans are failing Africa and failing Africa so bad. If Africa was like a human to ask, I think Africa itself would be very frustrated at Africans for how we have failed to manage the resources or natural beauty that Africa has blessed us with, and which of course is a significant problem for me. And I think now we should sort of shift the focus on Africans and challenge our own consciousness about Africa that we are feeling, and think we have to do something about it. But if I may just go to the next question, when we think of Africa and the challenges, and what are specific things that come to mind? It could be this, that. And why do you think we have those things? It could be failing education system. It could be poor health system. And who can we attribute these problems to? We just touched on leaders and people.
It's all about the elites, the people who are who people look up to. They are sort of not like delivering on what they should, what they should do, and it's not like they don't know what they are, what they are meant to do. But what I will say anyway, in general for Africa, I just think it's lack of system, a system based on rule of law. You see, in Western societies, it's not like people here are perfect or people here are really all doing the right things, but because here everyone is subjected to the law. So you have to abide by the law. Humans have to be tamed. I don't think Western societies have evolved anyway more than us, other than the fact that they are bound by rules. Yeah. You have to obey you have to follow the law. You can't, now, all of the Africans who are here, if you look, people are aware. When you're driving, you don't go through red lights. Yeah. Yeah. Simple as that may be. In Africa, you put a red light. Believe me, if a minister or a minister's son is driving by and they are in a hurry, they don't really have time to wait. And they will pass that red light, and believe me, nothing's going to come. There is no consequence out of that, because it's for them. Yeah. And even someone else now, an ordinary man who think he can justify it by I was really busy, or I really need to be somewhere. Yeah. They can pass, But it's about, and that's just just an example. But that's, I think, is the biggest problem. People don't abide by the rules in Africa, So people are not responsible. People are not accountable. Yeah. And now you have to be accountable, So if you are in a position, you have to deliver. If you don't, there should be consequences. And no bias, no favoritism, no nepotism. If we can have a system like that, that will be a start. It's not about us coming together. The whole idea of African unity or people should be united, I don't buy that. Just because I don't see people united in the West, since I've been here, I don't see people gathering together to work in unity like
Yeah.
Western people. You know, what's happened here, what we have is a system which every man lives under, you know. You can maybe sometimes try to dodge or whatever, but if you get caught, you face the consequences, you know, and we have to find ways to implement that in Africa, where the rule of law will reign supreme.
Yeah.
Everybody if you mess with the system, you know, you face the consequences, then maybe people will start to shape, you know, start staying in line, you know. And yeah.
Yeah, you just talk about leaders, right? And this is how I see it. I think both the people and leaders should be equally blamed because I think African people themselves are so corrupt. Like, also the culture, African culture is also so corrupt and backwards in ways that our culture itself, which is practiced by people.
But humans are corrupt in general.
Yes,
It doesn't matter African, white, Chinese. Humans will always tend to be corrupt. Not everyone, but humans in general tend to be corrupt because
definitely.
we always want for ourselves. We always want the best for ourselves. So, and then to get the best for yourself, in most cases, you might have to cut corners maybe or do whatever you can to get what you want. So you have to be the only way that can be controlled or managed is by having a system where, well, if you are corrupt, there are rules for corrupt people. So it's up to you now whether you're going to go the right way and do things rightly, or you do corrupt practices and hope you are not caught. Because if you got caught, you'll be locked up. So now that's the option you'll have, you know. So it comes down to, for me anyway, it just boils down to that. It's about having a system. So we can't say people can be corrupt, but we'll make people understand that when you are corrupt, this is what's going to happen. So it's up to you. You either do things the right way or you act corrupt, then you pay the price.
Yeah, but I think, just we should emphasize that both African leaders and African people are part of the problem. But again, one thing that comes up always when we talk about Africa is, you know, the Western involvement with Africa. And we talk about this a lot, wherein sometimes blame the West. But do you see Africa as being, or Africans as being responsible for their problem? Or do you contribute some of it to the West? What role do you think the West is playing or has played in Africa's problem?
Yeah, look, I will blame Africans because, you know, the only thing I would say for Western societies is like, okay, if you are at an advantage, if you are in a better position, you don't need to take advantage of other people. If you are well placed in any sort of situation where you have more resources or maybe you have more knowledge, you understand, you have to work with others who may not be at that level, maybe to help them fairly. But then that's, for me, it's like as well a wishful thinking, because really life doesn't operate like that. It's about survival. So then, and when I think of it from that angle, then I don't want to blame Western people as much as I'll look at it like our own greed from day one is what affected us. That's where we lost the plot. From the moment white people step their feet in Africa, we gave them everything for free just so that we can either be in a better position to attack our own people. We sold our people to slavery. That's why we blame that on white people. But actually, we did sell our own people. For a man who only had one gun, and you allow that man to carry 50 people and put them in, he only had one thing, he would run out of bullets. He didn't even have machine guns. So how will you allow somebody like that to enslave you in those initial contact I'm talking about, when they start coming around taking Africans? So basically, we sold ourselves, and for the fact that we need all these guns, we need all these things so that we can subdue our own people, we bought into the game of being, like brutal to our own people so that we can take advantage. And the politics played like that forever, so it's been like that since our interaction with the Europeans. We sort of, sold ourselves, That's why how people will interpret it, but that's how I feel about it. Like, we allowed that to happen.
What
It's
ab-
not fair what's done to us.
yeah,
It's not fair, but we allowed it to happen.
yeah, and I think Africans should take full responsibility for their failures, whatever it may be. And but my sort of point here is sort of a realistic understanding of what has happened. So just based on that understanding, the West is a major player in Africa failures.
Yeah.
Not more than Africans themselves,
It's a
because
contributing factor.
yeah, it's a
Yeah.
contributing factor. And I think and Africa should understand that and stop buying into this whole notion that the West is a friend. Because if we understand that the West hasn't been a friend, the West will not be the friend. It's not a friend now. Then I think it helps our effort to progress, because then you know who is a friend and who is not your friend. And I think the problem with the West, and some may argue, is the West they still pose as a friend to Africa. So it could be in humanitarian aid, in other form of political aid, and sometimes how there was an article about it, how the Western media, for example, portray Africa. It always focuses on what white people or West is doing in Africa, and as though without them, Africa wouldn't move forward. And then the imaging, the representation, so it represents Africa in a negative way. So they put these negative images about
But the
African
Africans,
people.
we spin that narrative though.
Yeah,
We benefit from that narrative.
yeah,
we think it's good because we get the aid. Like, so we're happy to even sell ourselves short or make ourselves cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we are the same one who will be like, things are hard for us, we need help, or our
Yeah.
children are all hungry. We allow these people to go take photos, and we never
exactly.
stand up and be like, we facilitate all of that. It comes to the greed. There are people now in Africa praying that UNHCR will bring more food, more
and-
this, more,
yeah.
so that they can benefit. So we are asking for it. Like, so the media playing into that, for them it's news, and it creates interest. People will, it's for them
And
anything that sparks
accreditation as
interest,
well.
that sensationalism, like, oh, in Africa people are all poor, they drink
Poor.
dirty water. Didn't you see some of the photos they show sometimes of kids drinking
Yeah,
water?
it's
exactly.
horrible.
Which sometimes is fake. You can look at it, but they want to create that particular perception. But that perception is something that our governments, our own people who are working with it, they accept it because it works for them. You can use that to say, okay, we need money to help this poor child, look what he's drinking. But you want to tell me with all the riches, like with all Africans, we can't manage to set up a proper, system where people can have access to clean water? With all the big cars that you see people driving in Africa, with all the amount of money that people have stashed in Europe or in Swiss, like in banks overseas, and people can access water, So, and now we start asking for millions of dollars to provide this water. And even when that million, there have been, God knows how many millions have been sent to Africa, but this water is still not there. The water is still not there, man. It's still, the same ads are still running. That same ad showing you that kid with the fat belly or so, asking for water. It's still there. It's been running for over 10, 15 years. So you want to tell me with all the millions still that we are receiving, you can still provide water? So it's a game.
It is.
And we are part of that game. So I know the West contribute to it, but I don't want to blame somebody who is. I have to take responsibility for it. For me, like, I know we've been used maybe or played or whatever, as most people will argue, but I think if we are responsible and we stand up for ourselves, it will be a lot of, there will be a lot of difference,
Okay, so then this brings me to my final question. It's like, I think we all agree that Africans fail in Africa, or there are significant problems in Africa. Can we, sort of as Africans, can we reverse our problems? Can we sort of make Africa a better place economically, intellectually? Can we do that? Is it possible?
It is possible.
Yeah.
We can. First of all, we need to change the system, and we need to change our mentality as people. So I believe that it truly can.
Yeah, it's possible, man. You see, this just reminds me of, Julius Caesar, reading Julius Caesar, you know, there is a passage there about when I think it was Cassius also trying to convince the other dude also about, you know, when they were plotting to get rid of Caesar.
Yeah.
He says men are sometimes masters of their own fate, you know. So our destiny is in our hands. We have to control it, you know. So it's up to us. It's what can we do, you know, for ourselves. It's not, and that can change any day we want to change it, you know.
Yeah.
Because it's all about looking at what we have and finding out how we're going to work with it. And it's all there. So it's not like we have to think. If you start to think of countries like Singapore, Malaysia, these countries have sort of, over the past 10, 15 years, these countries have evolved to like these big, you know, powerful nations, you know. And most of them really don't even have natural resources as much. You know, like Singapore, what do they have? You know, and even Malaysia, even the palm oil that they now, which is one of their biggest industries, you know, they got that from Africa, you know. But now we can't even come close to those guys, you know, the level at which they've advanced. We are far behind, and we've got everything. You know, we've got the right climate, we've got, you know, for agriculture, we've got mineral resources, and we've got people who are healthy, who are strong, and we have proven as well that we can learn and understand. We can read and we can write, and we can do mathematics. All these things Africans can do. We are capable.
But
So what are we doing with all these, you know, all these strengths that we have, you know? We're not making use of it.
yeah, even
And
it is possible, like because how I see it is like it's possible because everything is possible or anything is possible, right? But then is it realistic? And my point would be, if it is realistic, then it has to be based on the evidence and what they suggest. So if you were to come from that angle, you tend to see a different pattern. You tend to see some level of consistency in corruption, some level of consistency in independence on the West, some level of consistency in seeing ourselves as nothing. And I think because this is not a new argument that it's possible that Africa will change, and I do believe some days Africa will, because there are countries around that are doing better, and I think that wave who hit few African countries or other African countries, and there are leaders who start to see what is happening in Tanzania or Magufuli is really beating down on corruption. So that's possible. The evidence has suggested otherwise, and I think Africans, maybe we're not ready yet.
well, we have to be ready at some point. But like, look, okay, now we got the younger people like Miss G here, you know. They are the younger generation. They live in here in the West. So like, it would be good to get her view as well on what you will think, you know, as a young person, what can be done. Because for the older people, I don't think there's much they can do. Like even me here now, class myself in that area.
Yeah.
Now I will talk a lot, but really, how much can I add to it, you know? But for someone like you, the younger people, like, where do you think we should be going by now?
Well, for me, in my experience, I know that there are majority of Africans who are doing the best that they can to stabilize Africa. Majority of us have come here for a better life and better lifestyle. So the best, for me, in my opinion, that we can do is we should take back, you know, take what we have or have learned here back home. I mean, it'll take time and effort, but it's better to try,
Yeah, no, that's right.
you know.
Because for even if you, like my magazine actually, like most of the editorials, I've really spent a lot of time talking around these issues about, for us in the diaspora, for us living in the West now, what are we doing? If you think about it now, we can all manage our lives, like, you know. So the excess, that money that we have, what are we doing with that? But instead, we are all buying big cars. We are all trying to live this big life over here.
Yeah.
And there is not much of a sacrifice. It's like we're not looking at, okay, this is what we should do that will impact or that will have some changes, for people back home. We're not working in that direction. And I've got few people, even like some Africans, sometimes when I'm running this magazine, who are trying to, sometimes give this impression of we should be just, we should only cover things that we are doing as Africans, like, well, for things that like a European, like an Australian person of European background or so, if they do something, even if it's good for Africa, people have issues around it because they think it should be done by Africa. Well, that's a good idea, but what are we, if we can't help, and then somebody helps, and then you're not happy that this person is helping because they're not supposed to be the one helping, and we need to do something. Something needs to be done, But how are we going to do it? I don't know, because we can't have it both ways. We can't live here enjoying all this life and then thinking like, okay, what's going to happen to Africa? Who's going to help Africa? We too have a role to play. And a lot of people are forgotten even about Africa now. A lot of people here all now, in fact, they want to save money here, go back home, at least have a car that they can drive when they get there, and wear the nice shoe, and everybody look at them as some new arrival, and start to convince our young girls there, and play games, look like Mr. Cool, when the reality is, somebody have to sacrifice, somebody have to make a change so that the future generation at least can have something to say, okay, this is what our ancestors or this is what our parents did, because that's what we see in this society we are living in. In the West here, people are living off what their grandparents worked hard to put together. This is, now it looks so easy. If you talk to the older people here, like, if they tell you what they had to go through in the early years of settling here. But now we came here a few years later, in fact, everything looks okay, and we think, wow, this place is like paradise. It is paradise now, or it does look like paradise now, but there are people who sacrifice for it to be the way it is.
Okay. Yeah, just to that point, and I think we Africans, we have a lot to do, from being here, whether here or back home, working together, supporting Africa, but with our money and our intelligence or ideas. And so it's something we have to really be conscious about and take it on as responsibility. So, but again, for me personally, to believe Africans going to change, it has to be the evidence should suggest that we are changing our mindset and changing our effort towards making a difference. If I don't see that, it is a possibility and not realistic for me, though that's what I hope and who really want to happen for Africans. Just your last word before we close.
Well, look, I love Africa. In fact, I miss Africa. I've been here now for 16 years. I've been back on a few occasions, but the reality is I miss Africa in a way that I want to be there. I want to be working there. I want to help there. But then when you start to think of all the challenges going back and settling amongst our people, and because like after 10 years you go and you find out nothing has changed. The road that used to be even, that you used to complain about, it worse than the time you are living, the potholes, things don't seem to change, and that's the sad bit. And people are so entrenched over there in the corruption, and it's just scary. You think about going back, you want to make changes, and then you start getting all these worries, about how am I even going to effect change in a system where people are happy to be corrupt, That's the sad part of it. But then it's like a dilemma. But then are you going to allow that to just so that you just ignore what you should be doing, or should you just put that aside and go back and do something? So all I'll say for Africa is we that are overseas should find ways to either collectively or individually, but we should be doing something around helping back home, putting together some sort of, to contribute something that will help our people, I think we should do something along that line, because it doesn't matter how much we live here, how much longer we live here, or what sort of cars we drive here, or how best dressed we think we are sometimes, it will never change as long as Africa doesn't improve. There will be no respect for us, and there will be no pride. We will just look a bit funny, or that's how I feel anyway. Like, because if it's like you live in your house all messy, and then stepping out dressed up like the best man, but if you're inside your house is all messed up, but you're outside looking so clean and nice, and so you need to go in and clean your house, man. Then you can come out wearing a shorts and still looking clean. At least you know your house is clean.
Yeah.
It gives you confidence to move around rather than being well dressed.
Yeah.
But everywhere is messed, Someone want to come and say, "Oh, hold on, my brother. Stay out here for the time being. I need to go do some,
Cleaning.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Anyway.
Gee.
We, the younger generation that are here, I think we all have a role and responsibility to play, and we must understand that there's a reason why we're here, maybe for a better life or for a better lifestyle or for security purposes. That doesn't mean that we can't have those things back home. I truly believe that we can, and we need to work hard to make the countries, the way we want it to be, because majority of us that are here, we've become so complacent that we tend to forget where we come from at the end of the day. So my advice or recommendation would be that just remember where you come from, and whatever it is that you've come here to do, always remember to go home and give back. Whether little or small, at the end of the day, you're making a huge contribution and you're making change. That's all that matters.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, guys. And I think, Africa is, Africans are feeling Africa, like I said, and we have to take it as a responsibility to make a difference in Africa. And the responsibility is upon us to make the difference, to transform Africa to what we expect it to be. So we shouldn't shift that upon the West. The West is not going to do it. They haven't done it. They will not do it. I think we have to be conscious about it, I suggest. And it is not about possibilities in a way. It's about reality. Is it realistic? Can we do this? And so I think it's our responsibility to make a difference in Africa. So I just want to say thank you, Siddiq, for talking to us about the magazine and contributing to the topic, and to my co-host. And so as usual, please like our page, subscribe, leave your comments and views on the topic. Thank you.